Hi, this is Mrs. Bennett, and I'm going to do a read through of Act I, Scene 4 of Macbeth. This scene takes place after Macbeth and Banquo have met the witches and had their destinies predicted. Macbeth, you will remember, at the end of Scene 3, had contemplated that he might have to murder Duncan to get the throne, but then he, at the end, kind of decided, come what come may, chance may crown me without my stir, that he was willing to just wait and see if destiny would bring it to him like it brought him Thane of Cawdor. Act 1, Scene 4 takes place at Duncan's royal palace, Forres, and he has gathered together his captains after the war and his sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, in order to bestow titles and prizes and rewards on them for their service during the war. As we read through this, pay attention to some of the things we learn about Duncan and what type of a person he is. This is one of the first times we really get to see Duncan talk and say some things. And since we know what Macbeth is planning, it is important for us to know what kind of a guy Duncan is. So Duncan is the current king of Scotland. Malcolm is his oldest son. Donalbain is his younger son. And they are important in this scene. Macbeth and Banquo will enter in a little bit.
Is execution done on Cawdor? Are not those in commission yet returned?
My liege, they are not yet come back, but I have spoke with one that saw him die, who did report that very frankly he confessed his treasons, implored your highness pardon, and set forth a deep repentance. And nothing in his life became him like the leaving it. He died as one that had been studied in his death, to throw away the dearest thing he owed, as 'twere a careless trifle.
There's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust.
All right, so I know we haven't read very much, but I want to go ahead and stop there because before Macbeth and Banquo show up, this demonstrates an important thing about Duncan. Duncan is asking about the original Thane of Cawdor. So when he says his execution done on Cawdor, he's talking about the original Thane of Cawdor, who was discovered to be a traitor in Scene 2, and they had determined that they were going to execute him. Malcolm brings back a report that, yes, they have executed him, and that he confessed his treason, asked for repentance, and basically like he died the way you would hope a traitor would die, saying that he was wrong. But what's more important here is Duncan's response. Duncan says there's no art to find the mind's construction in the face. So he's saying there's no way, there's no method to tell what's going on in the mind by looking at someone's face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. When he says he right here, he's talking about the Thane of Cawdor. So he is revealing to us here that Duncan fully trusted the Thane of Cawdor, who turned out to be a traitor. So what does that tell us about Duncan then? If he completely trusted this guy who it turns out was working against him. He's a pretty gullible guy. He's overly trusting. Perhaps gullible, meaning he believes too easily, or naive, meaning that he doesn't see the bad in people. He sees the good in people. And while this can be a positive trait to trust people, and naivety shows, an optimism about life, it can be a dangerous trait in the king of a nation who just finished a war. So that's the main thing we learn about Duncan, is that he is overly trusting and maybe that he has a kind heart. All right, so now Macbeth and Banquo enter, and Duncan is going to go about bestowing prizes upon them.
Oh, worthiest cousin! The sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy on me. Thou art so far before that swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. Would thou hadst less deserved, that the proportion both of thanks and payment might have been mine. Only I have left to say, more is thy due than more than all can pay.
The service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself. Your Highness' part is to receive our duties. And our duties are to your throne and state, children and servants, which do but what they should by doing everything safe toward your love and honor.
Welcome hither. I have begun to plant thee, and will labor to make thee full of growing. Noble Banquo, that hast no less deserved, nor must be known no less to have done so. Let me enfold thee and hold thee to my heart.
There, if I grow, the harvest is your own.
My plenteous joys, wanton in fullness, seek to hide themselves in drops of sorrow. Sons, kinsmen, thanes, and you whose places are the nearest, know we will establish our estate upon our eldest, Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland, which honor must not unaccompanied invest him only, but signs of nobleness like stars shall shine on all deservers. From hence to Inverness, and bind us further to you.
The rest is labor which is not used for you. I'll be myself the harbinger and make joyful the hearing of my wife with your approach. So humbly take my leave.
My worthy Cawdor!
All right. So the main things that have happened in this part of the scene, once Banquo and Macbeth arrive, first of all, we get another hint at Duncan's kind heart. He says that his joys have hidden themselves in drops of sorrow. Duncan is moved to tears at the loyalty and service, which are the two things that Macbeth says a servant or anyone owes their king. And he's moved to tears. Duncan has a kind heart. He then announces, and this is very important, that he is making his son Malcolm the Prince of Cumberland, which means that Malcolm is going to become the next king. Now, we might think that that's obvious. He's the oldest son of the king, but some history that we'll probably go into soon is that Scotland actually has a long history of violent upheavals in their kingdom. And so it is not as clear-cut who is going to be the next in line. But by naming Malcolm the Prince of Cumberland, Duncan establishes that Malcolm will inherit the throne. And so we pause here to notice this was Macbeth's chance. Macbeth had come to Duncan's castle, having already received the title Thane of Cawdor, knowing that he was going to be celebrated and honored for his role in the battle that they just won. And so in the back of Macbeth's mind, he kind of thought that he might get the throne this way. And there are a couple of film productions that show a pause here where it says, we will establish our estate upon, and there's a pause and the camera cuts to Macbeth and you see in his face, he thinks, me, it's going to be me. He's going to name me the next king. And so then when Duncan says Malcolm, you can see it register on Macbeth's face. He thought chance would crown him, but instead chance appears to be crowning Malcolm. So now we are about to get another aside where Macbeth will consider what this means to him. Chance did not crown Macbeth. So what is he going to have to do about it? Also in here, we get the announcement that Duncan is going to travel to Inverness, which is the name of Macbeth's castle, in order to further celebrate Macbeth and his victories and officially give him the title of Thane of Cawdor, which he calls him down here, signifying that that transfer has already occurred. Okay, so pay close attention to this aside by Macbeth.
The Prince of Cumberland. That is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see.
True, worthy Banquo, he is full so valiant, and in his commendations I am fed. It is a banquet to me. Let's after him, whose care is gone before to bid us welcome. It is a peerless kinsman.
All right. So in this aside, which again is Macbeth at the front of the stage, talking only to the audience, he says, that is a step on which I must or leap or else fall down. And for in my way it lies. Macbeth has established that Malcolm is in his way. And that he now has to deal with that. He either must fall down, so he should either give up or else, or leap, or else overcome it. He either has to give up or do something about it. And he makes his decision here by calling out the stars. And this is the beginning of that theme of darkness that we talked about in the warm-up. He says, stars, hide your fires. Let not light see my black and deep desires. So Macbeth admits that he has black and deep desires for violence, for murder, doing harm to Duncan and or Malcolm. He says, the eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see. He says, let it be, even though I fear to see it. Remember, we talked about that he is shaken by this image of murder and this image of violence. It is against his nature, he said, but he wants it to happen anyway. So he asks darkness to cover his actions because he is scared. He's worried. Perhaps worried he can't go through with it. But he's standing over here plotting to harm Duncan and or his son Malcolm. Now notice Duncan closing out the scene to reveal to us again that Duncan is perhaps just a little too naive. While Macbeth is at the front of the stage, picture this. Macbeth is at the front of the stage telling the audience, I'm going to do something evil to these people. Then at the back of the stage, Duncan, in a conversation with Banquo, watching Macbeth, comments, he is so valiant. In his commendations, I am fed. It is a banquet to me. He is a peerless kinsman. Basically, Duncan standing at the back going, oh, wow, there's nobody better than Macbeth. Look at that guy. Macbeth is the best. Wow, I love that guy. While what we, the audience, have just seen is that Macbeth is plotting his murder. This is a great example of dramatic irony. We know something that Duncan does not know, and it also reveals to us more about Duncan's character.